Hey everyone, this is Cameron from Renegade Animation on renegadepopculture.com. If you like what you hear, please give us a like, a follow, and a rating on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to us. We are everywhere. That way we can keep doing what we love, and that's talking about animation. For now, on with the show.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Renegade Animation on the Renegade Pop Culture Podcast Network. My name is Mike. I'll be your host for this evening. Joining me, as always, is the animation guru himself, Cameron.
Howdy, howdy.
And this is a pretty interesting episode we've got today. A little bit of variety. We have reviews for Lupin the Third versus Cat's Eye, The Amazing Maurice, and New Gods, Jian. So we're starting off with the crossover that I never knew I wanted, Lupin the Third versus Cat's Eye.
So this is directed by Kobun Shizuno and Hiroyuki Sashida. It's on Amazon Prime right now, which was a surprise to everyone because I was wondering who was going to pick this up. Was it just going to be a Discotheque exclusive, or was Crunchyroll going to, or Sentai Filmworks going to pick it up? But no, Amazon Prime, even though they're probably going to give the distribution rights on Blu-ray for Sentai Filmworks, Crunchyroll in the future, since that's where all of their shows are going. The Cat's Eye sisters are once again aiming to steal the three paintings that once belonged to their father. Only this time, Lupin the Third is also after the same trio of paintings that is targeted by the three sisters. The paintings in question will also reveal a long-buried mystery. So this is the second Lupin the Third film to be done in CGI animation after 2020's Lupin the Third the First. And the animation this time was handled by Polygon Pictures, the same studio behind Blame, the Netflix Godzilla film trilogy, and plenty of anime that you've seen, like Escape Life, and they are also doing a current CGI anime for the winter 2023 season. And let's talk about the animation first, because if we don't talk about it first, it's going to bug me.
It's best to get this one out of the way first, because it's probably one of the only things that you and I definitely agree is the weakest element of the film.
Yeah, so a lot of the charm of Lupin the Third is his expressive animation. He's a little more cartoony in both design and movements. Same with everyone from that franchise. And Cat's Eye is from that time period of like the big economic anime boom of the 80s and 90s, when they were just like making everything. Everything could be a franchise or a possible OVA to sell direct to video in, or put it in theaters or sell it on a laser disc. It's one of those old nostalgic franchises. Basically, if Charlie's Angels were thieves. And I haven't seen that show in a long time, but it was interesting to see them brought back because it's one of those crossovers that makes sense. Like Lupin the Third has crossed over with, the Case Closed, even though their art styles are fairly different. They make sense. The world's greatest thief and the world's greatest detective. And here we have the two iconic franchises about thieves. And I wish I could say that Polygon Pictures were the right choice to make the film and not the weakest aspect of this entire experience. But it kept coming up in my thoughts as I sat down and watched this 90-minute movie. Even the whole thing of, oh my gosh, we got Pink Jacket Lupin, which we haven't seen in like 30 years.
Jeez, it's really been that long?
Well, because, like for Lupin the Third, there was the first series, which was Green Jacket, the second one, which has the more iconic Red Jacket iteration, and then the third series was Pink Jacket Lupin, which was a very polarizing series for fans of the show because it was like a much more cartoony and silly series not Teen Titans Go in a way, but like more comedic than action and thriller stuff.
Hmm.
And then they basically only brought back Pink Jacket Lupin for either a joke or just like a reference. It was either red or green jacket Lupin. I mean, honestly, depending on who directs and writes Lupin the Third films, specials, and shows, it could vary because we also have Blue Jacket and a Black Jacket Lupin. I like Polygon Pictures. I'm not saying they are a terrible studio, but their stiff, rigid CGI does a bit of disservice to the characters. Not that they look bad, they look great. They look as on point as they can and should for this crossover to make sense. Maybe it's just because they had to compromise with an art style that fit both. I mean, let's just say it's a more sensible crossover than Cyborg 009 and Devilman, but that's for another time. I know that not every CGI studio in Japan can be Studio Orange. Like, Studio Orange is the top tier, the cream of the crop. They make sure to put in all the extra mileage and work to making them expressive and not just stilted 3D bodies. Unfortunately, a lot of the action and thrilling and exciting moments of Lupin the Third versus Cat's Eye is undone because everything is very stiff and a little clunky and awkward. And the characters are not able to be super expressive and be themselves. They're having to stick to not one facial expression, but it kind of feels like that. They're not as over the top as they usually are. Even the very first Lupin the Third, the first CGI film, was able to capture that cartoony nature of it all.
That movie, I think that's probably some of the best CGI that I've seen in Japan, because they did for the Lupin characters what the Peanuts movie did for Charles Schultz creations. Like, they really did a good job of bringing those 2D characters to life. And here, the way you explained it makes a lot more sense why the more stiff the character models are, the less expressive the characters are allowed to be. And I can see why that kind of can hold this movie back.
Then it also has a little bit of that situation of it being a crossover of trying to find balance between the two franchises, because you have to put focus on our trio of art thieves and the detective that doesn't know that the three ladies that he loves talking to are the said thieves, which is very amusing, just that they didn't try to modernize it or something. They just kept them as dense as possible. Zenigata, they were able to still capture stuff. Like, Zenigata still has like a small militia of men at the ready every time he goes after Lupin. The voice cast is great. Like, if you're ever doing Lupin the Third, you have to bring back the main five. Like, you got to have Tony Oliver, you got to have Doug Erholtz, you got to have Lex Lang, you got to have Michelle Ruff and Richard Epcar. I liked the new voice actors for the Cat's Eye. We have Allison Packard, Christina V, and Deneen Melody, who I think all do a good job. They bring out the tomboy, the pseudo-serious leader, and then the one who's more protective of the three. And then we also have Ryan Colt Levy and Keith Silverstein. The performances are great. It's just undercut by how rigid everything is. And that's a shame, because Lupin and Cat's Eye are all about the big set pieces, like the heists and the getting away from Zenigata and his men. To be fair, there are a few moments where you can tell they put a lot more time into it, so the action feels compelling and exciting to watch as you sit on your couch and see how things unfold with that one reoccurring villain that connects the two series together, like try to take down Lupin and Cat's Eye so they can get these jewels that are from the paintings for some kind of mystical power. Is that correct? I had a hard time remembering exactly what these jewels did.
I don't think they really make it clear exactly what their purpose is. It's basically just like you have these crystals and you have the power. They don't really explain what that power is.
Exactly. And sometimes that's just kind of like the threat. It's like, we don't know what's going to happen. And that's supposed to keep you on edge. I had a bit of an issue with how they kept telling the story. It's like this old man who I won't spoil who it turns out to be is there, and he's just like treating everything like it's just like a morning jog. He's like very nonchalant, like, man, this guy could die at any minute. And of course, you find out how he's connected to Cat's Eye and paintings and this organization that want these paintings and this power. I just don't think it was as good as it could have been. It's still a lot of fun. The characters are still likable. The set pieces are very creative. I love that little remote control, like, police car that shocks the one detective.
They do have a lot of fun little moments of levity in a story that's otherwise, at least for a Lupin movie, a bit more on the serious side.
Yeah, this one's definitely less goofy than some of the other ones, which to me, Lupin works the best when it's a good balance of both goofy, fun, and serious when it needs to be, which is why I love Castle Cagliostro and the first so much. And then sometimes there are more serious toned specials and films like Jigen's Gravestone and Goemon's Bloodshed, which are more serious in execution, but are still very compelling because it's about the characters. Here, sometimes it leans a little too much into Lupin side of things, and then it's also mostly a Cat's Eye crossover. It's a little unbalanced from time to time, and then they find ways to connect Lupin to like his backstory with the girl's backstory, which he was just like, oh yeah, your dad took care of me. And it's just like, oh well, that's very interesting, very cool world, but wait a minute, this is Lupin the Third. They don't care about continuity. They're going to shrug this off like it's nothing, which is why Lupin the Third is fun. They just kind of set it up whenever they wanted to, and it makes sense. Another little detail about this one is Fujiko is not in the movie a whole lot. This is one of those cases where Fujiko gets second credit to everyone else. She plays mostly background shenanigans with the jewels and the organization, going undercover with the organization and having a more serious tone to her personality and demeanor. She's not like trying to play coy and tease Lupin like she usually does. And it was just interesting. I'm not saying it's a downside. It's just sometimes you can tell when a movie knows what to do with Fujiko, and then sometimes it's just like they have no idea what they're doing.
It's almost like she's making obligatory appearance because, you know, she's just kind of part and parcel to the Lupin family.
Which is weird because they've done like specials and a series that made Fujiko the lead, where they were both really compelling. There was one of the specials after Jigen's Gravestone and Goemon's Bloodshed that was all about Fujiko and focused on her dilemma. And here, it's just like she's there to connect the plot from point A to point B. The animation again comes up like when Jigen and Goemon are like, oh, great, look who's here. And then Lupin's just like, oh, look, it's Fuji Cakes. And he's just so like not excited about it. Though I do get a huge kick that like it's been like what? Like 40, 50 years of Lupin the Third. They are so aware of how nonsense it's going to be with Fujiko in any equation that they're just like, we're out. Bye. We don't want to deal with you and your love-hate relationship with one another. It almost gets us killed every single time, Lupin. I mean, like, what do you think about this movie? Like, what are your thoughts about the overall, like, themes of just, like, legacy and like protecting the girl's father's history with the paintings and so on?
I really like that whole theme of protecting their father's legacy. And I especially like the reveal of what these paintings actually represent. And that's why it's satisfying once they are able to secure the paintings from the bad guys.
Yeah, it's very nice. I like the payoff for it. It's a better payoff than most of these crossover events have. And it's very sweet. So I'm wondering if this was an experiment to give the Cat's Eyes franchise some time out in the sun and see if, like, okay, would people like to see another show or movie or something?
Because I know I certainly do.
I mean, I probably would. I wouldn't even mind another crossover event with the two franchises, because then you get like little moments like at the very end when all of the success that was because of Lupin and the three, they were like, oh yeah, Zenigata and the other detective did it. And then they are just like, yeah, we did. Yeah, thank you for your patience, and we were glad that nobody got hurt. Exactly. We were very honored to be able to stop these people. It's like they weren't ready to be like, oh, okay, okay. But I think if they were going to do this again, I would like to see a different studio handle it, because I don't want to feel like I'm hating on Polygon Pictures. I just feel like I would want to see either a different studio handle the animation or give it to someone stylish like Mappa or Studio Trigger. Just because, like, I don't want bad animation to undermine the appeal of this franchise, because at any point someone could jump in to the franchise with either a recent movie, a recent series, or like something like this.
I was going to suggest Toei Animation, mostly because I'm still kind of blown away by what they accomplished with the latest Dragon Ball movie, Superhero. If they're going to go in that sort of like CGI 2D hybrid style, then they're going to want to pair up with a studio that has experience.
A lot of the shows that are done for Lupin are at TMS. So it will probably happen there, but we'll have to see. But I think for what it is, it's a very solid action heist thriller kind of thing. For what it sets out to do, to be this combination between the two series, it does a solid job of bringing them together and giving a classic fan favorite franchise some time in the sun for a new audience to get into. And I think Discotech is going to be releasing the Cat's Eye series on Blu-ray.
Oh, then I definitely need to pick that up then.
It's always interesting to go back to those classic 80s, 90s franchises in anime to see how they hold up. Some of them do, some of them do not, but that's for another time. But yeah, definitely give it a watch if you have Amazon Prime. It's just called Lupin the Third versus Cat's Eye. Shouldn't be that hard to find, and it's got a dub. But next, we will be going into the world of Terry Pratchett as we talk about the animated adaptation, The Amazing Maurice. This is directed by Toby Genkel. It's written by Terry Rossio. It stars Hugh Laurie, Amelia Clark, Himesh Patel, David Thewlis, David Tennant, Gemma Arterton, Julie Arthurton, Rob Brydon, and Joe Sugg. And this is distributed by Viva Kids. The story follows Maurice, a goofy, streetwise cat who has the perfect money-making scam. He finds a dumb-looking kid who plays a pipe and has his very own horde of rats who are strangely literate. Like, basic plot is that they're doing that whole one heist series to another heist movie, well, pseudo heist movie. The rats want to do one more job, and then that's it, call it off. And they enter this new town where there are no rats, but there is still food being taken and being stolen from right under everyone's noses. So it's up to Maurice and the two human leads and the rats to find out exactly what is going on. So, Mike, do you have any connection with Terry Pratchett as an author?
Only really by reputation. Like, I haven't read all of Discworld, but I kind of know a little bit of his style and sensibilities. And I can say with confidence that while this movie does kind of struggle a little bit to figure out its voice, once they actually get to the town, that's when I really start to fall in love with this story and these characters.
Yeah, this was one of those films that was going to be released overseas on Sky Cinema as like one of those Sky Cinema exclusives. It was at the, well, funny enough, like Sundance Film Festival at like, and then it's going to get a small theatrical release on February 3rd as we are recording this. I don't know how big it's going to be. This is Viva Kids. They're not like a G Kids or a big distributor. And they don't really put out films in theaters unless it's like one of those super small for a weekend only New York and LA release kind of thing. Because I think this might be their first real major push for a theatrical release. Why not? Right now is the perfect time to do it, right before the new Marvel movie's coming out. And we aren't going to get a major animated film until April, at least in the theaters. Netflix has a film coming out in March. So,
yeah.
But for all things considered, Terry Pratchett has a few animated adaptations of his work, but I wouldn't say they're not, I don't know how well known they are. The only thing that's really noteworthy about them that has been made everyone aware of them is the fact that one of the most popular characters in the Discworld series, Death, was voiced by the late, great Christopher Lee. I've seen some of those clips from the animated miniseries, and he's just like, I desire to wash away my anger and problems away from this day. Like, what do you mean, Seth? I need a drink. And because, in that great Christopher Lee voice, I mean, how could you not love? It sounds weird. Who couldn't love death? But one of the things that makes this film stand out is how the mayor's daughter is handled. Her name's Militia. She's the one voiced by Emilia Clarke of Game of Thrones fame, among other things, but still, you would know her from Game of Thrones. And she plays a character who is very meta about not just the film itself, but storytelling in general. What did you think about her? Did you ever find them tiring, or did you just find that like at one point it fits with the rest of the world's semi self-awareness of what's going on?
I think before she actually becomes a character in the film, she does come off a touch grating in the framing device. Once you actually get to know her, kind of start to warm up to her antics, and she really does become a likable character. I think one of the things that helps this movie is the animation, the character designs, the very expressive facial expressions. All of that is like in service of this very wacky story, and all of that just kind of comes together quite nicely.
Yeah, for one of the few UK-based animated features that we have covered, you can tell it has a small budget, but what they do with the budget is what matters. And while you can definitely tell where they were running a little short on things, like when there's like city or town scenes, it's very empty. Not a lot of people walking around because they just didn't have the time or the budget to make a lively, bustling town. But it also makes sense with all the food that's gone missing, that you'd only see like a few people here and there. And the fact that it's like some things look a little flat CGI wise, but you know what? As long as it's not the worst look, I think everyone won't mind that, because there are definitely some points where it's like some films where the small budget hurts it. But here, I think good budget and time management helped here, because I agree, the expressive animation really helps make this not feel so flat. Like, I think maybe still images of this film won't do Maurice justice, but he's a very funny looking character. Melissa and Keith, the two leads, are very expressive. And there are two animation details that I love. One of them goes with the rats, and they give a lot of them their own designs. And of course, the ones with celebrity voices actually get like names and personalities to them. But they do these little things from time to time with the characters and like the rats that tells you so much without having to like over explain or over narrate or something. Like when the rats are running into the sewers of the new town, Sardines, the one voiced by Joe Sugg, is running on his back legs while everyone else is running on all four legs. And he's like holding on to his thimble hat and such. That's a great little detail that gives you so much who Sardines is as a character. And then the boss man. The boss man, from what I've seen from people that we know who have seen it, has probably been everyone's favorite character of the movie. Just the way he bobs and weaves as he moves like a big rag doll is so cool. And it doesn't even look out of place with the rest of the world around him.
Oh no, he fits in perfectly.
I mean, it helps that David Thewlis does a great job with the character, and you're just kind of constantly wondering who he is under all of those clothes. Because they do this thing where there's like a parallel between what the film is actually doing and is, I guess, Peter Rabbit parody that like kind of follows alongside the movie in terms of plot and such. And I was thinking like, okay, so it has to be another rat, or maybe it's a snake or something, because he's like, because you know how I love rats. And it's like, okay, that has to be like a snake or something. But we won't spoil what exactly it is. There's just a lot of charm within the designs and animation to everyone. It brings life to this film that not a lot of smaller budget animated features take the time to do. It reminds me of that, what was that called? Red Shoes and the Seven Dwarfs?
Yeah, something like that.
It has like the same kind of charm and appeal as that movie did for me, like with this one. And I love David Tennant as the rat Dangerous Beans.
Fun fact about that, this is actually his second time playing that character. There was a BBC radio dramatization that came out 20 years ago where Tennant did the voice of Dangerous Beans there.
While this story is like not super connected to Discworld, you can tell a lot of the magical nonsense of Discworld is inside this movie, like how the rats learn how to talk and then they name themselves after things that they find in the junkyard. I think that's very funny. And Maurice's backstory is also a lot of fun with a slight tinge of dark comedy with how he learned how to talk. Honestly, if you've seen the French animated film, The Rabbi's Cat, it's basically the same origin story. So, you know, if you know, you know.
Oh, yeah. It's dark, but I think the way Hugh Laurie delivers that line makes it like oddly amusing.
It seems like everyone was on the same page with this movie. And I think that's really fun because everyone is having a blast doing their roles. And even Melissa, once she meets Keith and Maurice, is a delight. Like, I love when they're like going around town and she's trying to be all sneaky. It's like Kronk from The Emperor's New Groove. When
That's exactly what I was thinking.
All I could think about is like, there's got to be a moment where she's just like hiding in plain sight, and everybody's like, "Oh, okay, that's weird." Well, whatever. I didn't laugh consistently throughout this movie. Like, I think some of the meta jokes at first got a little grating, especially when you do smart aleck kids. You got to be so careful about writing those because they can either be really realistic or just the worst. I think the kid in like the first little village, when they're doing their whole rat infestation spiel, got a little annoying, but it is also funny that the kid is just not buying it. It's just a fun little movie. It's obviously not going to stay the best animated film of 2023.
Oh, no.
Like anytime soon. I mean, it's probably going to get dethroned by March by The Magician's Elephant, depending on how the end result of that film is. But sometimes you need a little fun, charming experience because I love watching all animation, big and small, from all around the world. Sometimes I just want a Red Shoes and Seven Dwarfs or a Wish Dragon or the Amazing Maurice. Just something low key you can just put on and have a solid time with. The characters are likable. The romance is fine. I mean, I think it's kind of cute how at first Keith is so annoyed with Militia and her meta-ness. Like when they get captured and tied up, she's like, so this is the part where you show off your secret talent or like a hidden knife. And he's just like, oh, yeah, let me no. There are a few really good laughs. And I know some of the human designs are really absurd looking, but I feel that it's more cohesive than most smaller budget animated fare that I see. Because sometimes with lower budget affairs from around the world, you're lucky if the humans look decent.
This time, I thought they all looked fine. Some of the goofier designs, they kind of benefit the story because this is a very comical world in which they inhabit. So I don't mind, for example, the mayor and those two other crooks looking kind of weird and disheveled, while Alicia looks pretty bog standard for these kind of movies.
But it looks fine. Like, I think that one rat catcher who looks basically like an onion with a hat, I think it looks fine. Everyone has fun proportions about them or like cartoony movements, like the Pied Piper character they meet. A lot of fun. Someone definitely liked animating that character. And I know like the rats kind of come off like they were inspired by Ratatouille. But, you know, at one point it's just like, that's fine. Someone cracked the code to make good looking rats.
That they did.
Because, you know, that was still back in the day where we were still finding out like how to animate humans well in CGI. And then comes Pixar and Brad Bird being like, here are the designs. Here's how you're going to translate them. There we go. So I don't care if they look like they were ripped right out of Ratatouille or whatever. They all have pleasant designs. So, and I think that's just like how I feel about this movie. Maybe I'm talking it up too much because I know some people have just said it's all right. But for this time of year where it's slowly not becoming a dump month for the year's worst movies, getting a really rock solid, well animated, likable, charming animated film so early in the year is like a thank you. Because I know it had to follow up Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Like, I think anyone could watch this film and find some stuff to like about it.
One last thing I'll mention. I don't think we talked about the screenwriter yet, Terry Rossio. His credits are honestly low-key very impressive. He wrote the screenplay for Aladdin, Men in Black, The Mask of Zorro, The Road to El Dorado, Shrek. He did the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. His resume, along with his usual co-collaborator, Ted Elliott, they have a pretty impressive resume. And you can tell, like, someone with that talent, of course, would be attracted to this kind of material.
Yeah, I think the writer found a very good balance of charm and appeal without really having to modernize anything. It's like there are no pop culture references. The only thing that you can argue is more modern is the meta nature of it, but it's also Terry Pratchett. His books and his style of writing was always very silly and meta and full of puns and wordplay and silliness. And for those who are wondering, death does show up in the movie, but he's in it for maybe a few minutes. He shows up once before the big conflict ends, and then after the conflict ends, as he talks to Maurice. And he's as appealing as you would hope he would be, because for some reason, Terry Pratchett wrote a very appealing version of Death. He's the most appealing character of the whole franchise, and so on. So I don't know how big of a theatrical release it is. Hearing theatrical release with Viva Kids, it's probably going to be small. So if you can see it, do see it if you want to. Otherwise, wait for it on digital to give it a rent. But Yeah, for right now, I still say check it out.
This is a very solid recommendation.
Let's keep that up. Let's keep making January and February full of fun movies and not just be a month where you just need to put out something since, everyone is either busy with award season films or the films from December, or they are trying to catch all of the small Fathom event releases of foreign animated films like the new Sword Art progressive film, or maybe that time I got reincarnated as a slime, the movie Scarlet Bond, or one of the best films from 2022, New Gods, Yang Jian, the sequel to Light Chaser Animation's New Gods, Neza Reborn. This is directed by Ji Zhao. It stars Nicholas Andrew Louis, Luke Nefat Soth, Perry Shin, Christine Lin, and James C. G Kids brought this over. It made its U.S. premiere at Animation is Film back in October of 2022. 1,500 years after the War of the Gods, the heaven declines. Basically, after this big war, deities and demons now use aircrafts to travel around the lands. Not that there's no land on the bottom or below the clouds. It's just a lot of cities are now floating in the skies and nobody's using magic and what have you for transportation. We follow Yang Jian, the god of Erlang, who used to be a very powerful individual who, after a certain event unfolded, lost his powers and is now basically living paycheck to paycheck as a bounty hunter with his very Cowboy Bebop inspired crew. I saw the ship when the trailer was first released last year. Now it's oh, that's kind of cute. It's very Cowboy Bebop. It's very Cowboy Bebop.
It's basically the steampunk version of Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah, so basically after they take care of a mission of catching someone, they are then approached by this lovely, mysterious woman to find this young man that is of interest to her, who has these magical artifacts that are set up to do something. It's up to Yang Jian to find him, make sure that those artifacts don't get used for the wrong purposes, and finally come to terms and deal with the incident that happened 1,500 years ago. I love that a studio like Light Chaser Animation exists. I am so happy this studio exists.
Same. They are pulling off some amazing feats. I think this is the best Chinese animation studio because what they're doing is they are taking full advantage of the medium and doing things that just simply cannot be done in live action.
I mean, I love live action adventure stuff, but I am also not going to deny the fact that animation just has no limits. You can do whatever you want. What's the only thing holding you back, again, is just time and budget. First off, really cool world setup because we had the diesel punk look of New Gods Neza Reborn, and here we have more fantastical steampunk with a very heavy emphasis on the fantasy aspect of it. The ships and the buildings and some of the gadgets are very quote unquote modern to a degree, but it's still in this Jade Empire from BioWare world where there's airships, lights, electricity, and just a multitude of modern amenities. It's how a lot of people think of Final Fantasy IX and such. It looks cool. It's a distinct looking movie. And while Light Chasers are definitely not doing anything different with the human looks of everyone, when you have something that works, until you really need to push the envelope or try something else, you're going to do what works for you.
Yep.
Another fun aspect about this movie is how I know, just take a shot every time we compare it to Cowboy Bebop, but it really much is. Like, the first half is basically hunting down this young man who does not trust Yang Jian, but is also getting the attention of the demon deities that are trying to prevent something from happening. But they also deal with like scummy little underworld cretins, like that one monkey with his two ape henchmen. Like, I thought that moment in the film was great where Yang Jian is just trying to chill at this casino and they're trying to give him flack, and then they get blasted by two of the four demon deities. And then later on try to feel like they can take down this young man and Yang Jian. And Yang Jian is very much like Spike mixed with a little bit of Jackie Chan, because he's just like, I don't want to fight, I don't want to get violent, but he's also going to like not get hit. As time goes on, it then turns into more action, adventure, mystery thriller, as we see this young man team up with one of the more entertaining characters of the entire movie. Like, you've seen him like in a lot of the marketing, and he's very distinct with how he looks because, you know, got a guy with like the very stereotypical hollowed out gourd full of some kind of alcohol.
Oh, yeah.
And when Ajin Xiang is teaming up with Shen Gongbao, and you think like Shen Gongbao is just kind of like, screw the gods, they've never done anything for us, and he wants to just get back at them. You think at first there are no real connections to New Gods Ne Zhao Reborn. They don't do all the big spiritual superpower like JoJo stand kind of things up until they hit this lighthouse location. And Zhen Jiang and Shen Gongbao take on one of the four brother demon deities with the big sword. And you see that Shen Gongbao has that JoJo Bizarre Adventure stand ability. And so does Zhen Jiang. The action, like, this studio knows what they're doing with action. And who knows, maybe they saw Kung Fu Panda all that long time ago and were like, okay, they've done it. They cracked the code. Let's do that. They've taken their martial arts, wuxia, epic fantasy films and made them animated.
Basically.
Like, what do you think about the action in this film? Like, the first film was very much reliant on the powers to fight demons. But here, it's more humans with godlike powers, or, you know, fallen deities fighting other deities. And it leads to a more grand scale of action. Like, everything hits harder and has more of a scale to it.
I was going to say, well, first of all, I think there are just way too many fight scenes in this movie to pick like a favorite, because they're all pretty much incredible. But what you're saying about the size and like the scale of the action, this one is definitely on a much grander scale, especially towards the finale.
That lighthouse fight sequence very much is the turning point of like, oh, this is the stakes. Like, when the deity sees that Zhen Jian is heading for the power source of the lighthouse, he just makes a huge sword just cleave through the whole building just so he could not get across. And then, of course, Shin uses his powers with his tiger to maneuver and get by the guard's offense just to help Zhen Jiang with then probably one of the sadder moments in the movie, seeing Shin get taken down, not by one of Zhen Jiang's attacks on accident or something. Some other force took him down. And then that's when the film shifts into more of a mystery thriller aspect on top of the action, of course. You find out the connections between all these characters and how everything unfolds. And it's done well. It's a little bit of a long movie at 2 hours. And it does one thing I don't like. I mean, granted, getting to the point is a bummer, but the part that instigates it is when Yang Jian gets thrown in jail and he encounters that guy from the beginning. And the
Oh
guy's just
yeah.
like, I love this part where the guy's just like, oh, so you're here, the guy who took me in and got me arrested. Well, no grudges or anything. And Yang Jian just looks dazed and just like sleep deprived. He's like, huh. And then the guy's like, the 20 strings of gold. And Yang's like, oh, yeah, you're that guy. Very Jackie Chan, kung fu comedy kind of humor. And that whole prison escape is great. You get to see Yang Jian's crew show off their prowess about like what they can do and what have you. And the fact that that whole prison is guarded by like a 5-headed dragon is such a cool little detail. I love stuff like that. Or that place with the bank at the beginning of the film that Zhen Jiang robs with the big demon with the eyes and the palms, and he has like 4 arms, so he's like constantly looking around.
That thing is so creepy. I would never want to run into a creature that you basically can't escape from. His eyes are everywhere.
Yeah, and the big problem, or at least the one part I don't like, is that the film, for no real reason, just kind of throws the other characters away except for our main 4 characters, Yang Jian, Zhen Jiang, Wan Luo, and then Yang Jian's master, who plays a bigger part near the end of what is exactly going on here, with the incident being long ago there were these phoenixes, and if they were to escape, they would have just wrecked the world, thrown the world into chaos. To make this work, Yang Jian had to, with his sister, had to seal away the phoenixes, and unfortunately his sister had to be sealed inside. To see who actually wants the phoenixes unleashed, definitely, like, if you're paying attention, you can tell who the actual villain is, but it still leads to, again, multiple fun action set pieces. I love those demon deities, like the one with the big string instrument.
That was really cool.
Like how he would just like pluck the strings and it would send out little slices of energy blasts. Or the one guy with the weasel and the other one with the umbrella. This is why it's important to have these studios exist, so they can use their history and culture to inspire the films that they are making, and not let what Disney do and make like a big hodgepodge stew of like different cultures and call it a day and say it's representation, when these movies are doing a better job of that than whatever Disney's doing. Then during this big last third epic sequence, they change art styles, and I love this part. They combine the CGI models with Chinese ink paintings.
I always love in general when movies like switch up the art style. It looks gorgeous, but it's also eerie and ominous too, because they're essentially in like a prison scroll.
It's really cool how the whole visual style changes, because we've seen little moments where Light Chaser dips into that experimentation. It happened in Whitesnake. They did it a little bit into New Gods Ne Zha Reborn. And they do it a little bit with Green Snake. But this is where they finally do it. It's like those shorts that Pixar and Disney make, where they're like, okay, we're not going to try this out with a movie. We're going to try this out with a short. Let's work on that. And then once we find out how it works, then we can put it into a movie. It's just so cool how creative this film gets, and how it's all about Yang Jian dealing with the past that he's been kind of lugging around in the form of emotional baggage, and how he feels like he could have done more to protect the people that he loves and feels like he didn't, and then realizes that like he has to let go of the past. He has to accept that it happened. Then he unleashes the power, and boy, if you were able to see this in a theater, the moment Yang Jian's power is unleashed, it looks great on a big screen. They get scale down right. Don't know how they do it. I am so amazed when any studio can make you feel small or feel like, oh gosh, that thing's actually going to come out of the screen. It's getting one of those small Fathom events, which sucks because people say they want to see films from around the world, but the problem is due to the lack of demand, they are not giving big releases. So you have to hunt down these releases, and depending on where you live, you have to go to different theaters, and that could either be like a few hours away or maybe a day's drive away. It's not fun that some people have to do more work to watch these movies on the big screen. I wish G Kids did like with what they did with the Ghibli re-releases and do that with the films that they own the rights to. People should see films like New Gods, Yang Jian on a theater or on the biggest screen possible with the best surround sound and such. It's a movie that demands a theatrical experience. And like, this movie's so cool. I love it. It maybe could have been paced a little better near the end because it's feels like it's not entirely correct with what I'm about to say, but it feels like they have to kind of keep repeating the last bit of just trying to seal the Phoenixes back up a couple times. But I love this movie. I got so excited watching it again. And go watch it or wait for it to come out on Blu-ray or whatever. Just like watch this movie. Watch New Gods Neza Reborn that's on Netflix, and maybe G Kids can like make a deal with Netflix to put New Gods Neza Reborn on a Blu-ray with New Gods Yang Jian or something like that.
Yeah, no, they absolutely need to do that. And I hope more people, at least here in the States, open themselves up to the awesomeness that is Light Chaser Animation Studios, because they're doing some great work over there, and I can't wait to see. Apparently the next movie is coming out like this summer, so
we'll see, because it seems like Netflix bought a few of the films from Light Chaser and G Kids got the other two. Like, G Kids has Whitesnake in this movie, while Netflix has New Gods, Neza Reborn, and Green Snake, which that's a little frustrating because if you don't know what Green Snake is or how it's a follow-up to White Snake, it's going to be really confusing. It's like one of those sequels that's like, oh no, you have to watch the first one. I wish it wasn't a 2022 film, because this would very much be the best movie out right now.
Same.
Give it a watch if you can. That's really it for this episode. Next time, we're doing it. We're talking about the winter 2023 anime season.
And because Valentine's Day is around the corner, we decided to push the comedy of romance to part 1. All right. Until next time, Cameron, where can everyone find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at Cam's Eye View. It's also the same for my Hive account. I have a website called camseyeview.biz where I review animated films and shows from around the world called The Other Side of Animation. I also have a Patreon at patreon.com/camseyeview. That's where you can find me.
And you guys can find me on Twitter and Hive at Captain K42. You can check out my quick thoughts on letterboxd.com/CoachK42. And you can follow Renegade Pop Culture on Facebook and Twitter at Ren Pop Culture. You can also find us on YouTube, on Podchaser, on the Banana Meter. Listen to all of our podcasts on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. And last but not least, everything can be found at renegadepopculture.com. Need an escape? So do we. That'll do it for this episode of Renegade Animation. We will catch you guys later. Peace out.